Well, hello, folks. It's been a while. It's Mark here. I'm back again with This Is How We Did It. It's volume 21 now. I've been having a bit of a break because I've written my debut novel, which has been edited for the last 6 months by myself, and I'm handing it over to a professional now. I've done 50 instrumental pieces of music to go with all the chapters. So that'll be out next year. I'll let you know more about it through the year, and we're going to do some more of these next year, but I had to really focus my mind on that. So, coming up to Christmas, nice Christmas special for you about one of my favourite artists, a guy who I think is definitely up there as one of the greatest soul artists of all time. He didn't have an easy life, as we'll find out. He was a brilliant songwriter, amazing guitarist, and one of the most uniquely gruff, powerful voices you'll ever hear on record. And we're talking about Bobby Womack, okay? Some of you may know, who like Rain Christian, know that we also worked with him, which was a dream come true for me. And yeah, so let's look at his life. And of course, Bobby's not with us anymore. He died a few years ago. And some pretty amazing facts about him, okay? So first of all, he's kind of responsible for launching the Rolling Stones, because he was the writer, let's get listening quick, of It's All Over Now, okay, which went to number one in the winter of 1964 for the Rolling Stones. It was released by Bobby and the Valentinos earlier that summer, so they were quick on the heels of a good song. So have a listen to this. I had my nose open, that's no lie. Great, brilliant, lovely sound of the early 60s there. So that's Bobby Womack coming in then. If you think about how long this guy's been going for, or had been going for, that's amazing. So I wanted to also, fans of Rufus and Chaka Khan, he was also the writer of You're Welcome, Stop On By, which is a beautiful soul standard and an amazing track that's been sampled lots of time. But Bobby was the writer of that song. Here's his version of it.
I'm gonna say these words. Girl, you're welcome.
Stop. Oh, disc is too slow. Crikey. So yeah, Stop On By there was by Bobby. Covered by Rufus and Chaka Khan. And when I was working with Bobby, I'll tell you the full story later on when we listen to the a cappella. I got talking to him about how the fact that Rod Stewart had ripped him off. So those of you who may remember, Rod Stewart did a song called Do You Think I'm Sexy, or If You Think I'm Sexy, and it went da 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 diddle 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 diddle. Okay, so if we let's have a listen to this and see where he got ripped off. Listen to the strings. Okay, I've got an issue going on here. Let me just close this down for a minute. I'm going to come back. It's the first time I've had a technical problem. That's not fair, is it, on a Christmas special? What I'm going to do is I'm going to save this up, and I'm going to reload it. And while I reload it, I'll tell you the story about how I got to work with Bobby Womack, and then we can keep the game moving. Okay? So closing the project, and this is the horrible side of studio work when things crash. Okay, so let's quit Logic Pro. So yeah, I was promoting Northern Sulphuric Soul, the album, around Los Angeles and doing DJ gigs and what have you. And I ended up on a radio show called Dub Lab. And Dub Lab was one of the world's first radio internet shows, okay? So at the end, so we just worked with Jerry the Damager and the Jungle Brothers and, of course, Viva from Manchester, but, there's Texas on there as well. And basically, what happened was, the guy who was interviewing me, the guy Frosty, who started Dub Lab, said, is there anybody you'd like to work with while you're over here? And I said, well, I do really like the Far Side. Of course, that came true. And I also, love Bobby Womack, and was particularly fond of this album here, which is called The Poet, which we'll get into when my computer started behaving itself again. And what it was is the former manager of Bobby Womack was listening into the internet radio show, which is pretty impressive in itself, because this is like 1999, okay? And what happened was he left a post-it note saying the name of the manager, and he managed Weird Al Yankovic and Bobby Womack. Now, if you've ever seen such a ridiculous combination of two people to manage, those are the two. But he was very positive about Bobby. He said, "Look, I don't manage him anymore," but he said the guy is all about music. Yeah, obviously we know that. Here's his home phone number, right? So I started to tremble a little bit then, and I rather than sort of think too much about it, I went back to the promoter of the Northern Sulphuric Soul album in America's offices. It was called Green Galactic, and I just thought, bugger it, I'm just going to ring him up now. So I rang it up, and he picked up the phone, and it was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, hi, this is Mark Ray from England. I've got a record label called Grand Central, and I love your music. I've loved it for decades. I would love to work with you. And he was like, yeah, well, you just send me the deck. And that was it. Basically spoke to him for a little bit. Seemed like he was up for it. So I got back to Steve, and we made some beats, and that's where we started. So look, let me just try and get this started again. And then proceeded many late night phone calls with Bobby, where he'd talk for an hour without me saying anything, which was brilliant. I could understand most of it, but he was quite a character, and he had the most gravelly, deep voice you could ever imagine. And I was very pleased that towards the end of his life, he got to work with Richard Russell from XL, and also, the Gorillaz, and got to expect what his name deserved, because this guy was a songwriting genius. Okay, so Logic Pro X is loading back up again. Let's see if it's going to behave. Okay, we're on the story of Rod Stewart, and I'm sorry for all the chatting there, people, but that was because we had a technical failure, and I've just tried to style it out. Okay, here we go. And... Right, this is the Rod Stewart thing, so listen to the string line.
When a person wanted something, they had to put it in a will call. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And that same thing applies to anyone that's looking for love. And that's...
So there you go, Rod Stewart ripping off Bobby Womack, right? And I ended up bonding with Bobby Womack over this, because he was quite surprised that I would have picked that out. Don't know whether he ever paid him any money, but I think Rod Stewart ended up covering some of his songs. Probably a little bit backhanded way of saying, there you go, Bobby, don't sue me. Okay, so you can see there, Bobby Womack linked to the Rolling Stones and Rufus and Chaka Khan. And did lots of great solo tracks that you'll know, 110th Across 110th Street, which was used in the Jackie Brown movie. All of that sort of stuff. But I personally got to know him at the Tube, the Friday night show on Channel 4, because he performed there when he was doing his 80s comeback, which came post this Poet album, which really blew everything open for him again. And he was doing things like this, which is one of my favourite tunes of his, which is called All the Things We Do When We're Lonely. Things that were on the YouTube comments of this track were, I've cried to this song, which I think that's what Bobby's all about, really. Bobby's about channeling pain, right? Lots of soul artists have got sweet voices. Lots of soul artists, can take you away, and they can sell beautiful falsetto like Marvin Gaye. Of course, Marvin's probably one of the best to do it, but Bobby had raw pain, okay? So let's have a listen to All the Things You Do When We're Lonely. Such amazing Los Angeles soul musicians. Patrick Moten.
So I took back my keys, told her goodbye, and I walked out the door. I drove away, so careful not to look back.
Okay, beautiful chorus there as well. That's amazing, because the sound production of that is so tight and modern. I think it was mid-80s that was done, that it still sounds perfect now sonically. Of course, things like this Poet album really put it in the late 70s, early 80s. And basically, I'm going to end up doing an edit here of How Could You Break My Heart with a little help from Redman, Cypress Hill, and Eric Sermon, okay? But I just want to give you some background to where we are with all of this. So, going back to what I was saying about the Rain Christian time, which was 1999, we recorded with them. I have an a cappella here of Bobby Womack singing our song. And would you like to hear Bobby sing a cappella? Let's do this because it's kind of spine-tingling stuff. Here we go. Whoops. You have to excuse me, I'm a bit rusty because it's been 6 months, hasn't it? Okay, here we go.
Sometimes I hear the phone ring late at night, and I wonder to myself now, who could that be? 3 o'clock in the morning, I say I'm just gonna let it ring and not let it bother me. I'm much too tired, got to get some sleep. Who in the world is that crazy girl on emergency? I don't know, and I don't really care. A little boy says, pick up, pick up, pick up, pick up, pick it up. Pick up, pick up, pick up, pick up, pick up, pick it up. And when I do, I hear somebody breathing. Phone go click, and you know I scream, "Ow! Get a life!"
Okay, that's the Get a Life tune. Amazing song because I had quite a bit of trouble with what it was about. Okay, so Bobby had a stalker, right? So he had a... He went to some charity do. I mean, he would tell me all these stories on the phone for hours, and I'd just go, yes, Bobby, yes, Bobby. So he had a stalker, and when he delivered the dats to Steve and I to finish the track, he wanted us to put a phone message from this stalker. Now, this stalker, who was a woman, had a voice as deep as Bobby's, which was a bit off-putting, and it called him some very rude names, which, well, you know... terrible, really. And we said, Bobby, well, for a start, I was really worried that if we put it on the record that the stalker might then come after me. So we left it off. But anyway, it was an amazing experience. Harold Payne ended up co-writing this with us. So Harold Payne had written quite a lot of his famous hits. So yeah, an amazing experience. I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about the Poet album before we get on playing this edit. So this sort of brought him back in to being a star in the 80s. And if you ever want to listen to what I consider to be the best side of soul music ever made, in my opinion, side 2 of this Poet album has got Games, If You Think You're Lonely Now, and Where Do We Go From Here? All 3 of them amazing gospel, Los Angeles musicians, soul, depth, muscle shoals, horns and players, rhythm sections. Really, really powerful stuff. So, yeah, get the Poet, get the second side on, particularly on a Sunday, and it'll blow you away. Right, okay. So quickly before we touch on to the playing the edit here, which I'm going to give it to you free at the end of the scenario. Let's talk a little bit about his life. He lost 2 sons before he died. He married Sam Cooke 3 months after Sam Cooke had been shot dead. He was then beaten up by Sam Cooke's brothers. He has really had a hard life, or he had a really hard life, and that's what I like to think you hear when you hear him singing. He's not the type of person who sort of coats things with this idea of R&B or soul. He's giving you pain on a plate, as I said, and I love the guy, still do. Saw him live at the Tube when I was 15 or 16, and on that note, let's go and have a listen to what we've got here, okay? I do this with great respect. Of course, I've recorded with him. This is an edit of How Could You Break My Heart, which is available on 12-inch. I think it was done just before that Poet album, 1979, re-released in 87. You can get that on 12-inch. It's Manchester Soul Classic, Parker's, Dean at Parker's. You had your suits on, you do the 2-step, soul all night. Amazing. Okay, that's the side of Manchester you don't get to hear about too much. All right, then, here we go then. We are going to be listening to How Could You Break My Heart, re-edited and added with Cypress Hill, Redman, and Eric Sermon. some echoes off the track. Red man, be real.
Turn up my level, adjust my voice pitch. Raw silk, but you do it to my music. Put the focus on the corners in the alleys. Stomp your hands in the air. Come
It's a beautiful track. I'll hold the vocal off of Bobby's. Let's get back into it.
on the corners in the alleys. Stomp your hands in the air. Come on.
Okay, let's break it down, okay? Do you think that's loud? Think about me, my ears are just gone. If you love somebody,
is the word with that right pitch. Be like either bomb dig. I'm hardcore to the bone, one for the trouble, and two for the best.
when we were doing our track,
No doubt, flesh is the word.
he said, put a rap on there. And I was like, well, yeah, we could put a rap on there. We never got anyone to do it, but it's nice to actually put a rap on one of his tracks. He's a very open-minded guy. Yeah, love it. One of my favourite tunes of all time. How Could You Break My Heart? Okay, massive guitar solo in there. So it's funny, you know. So when the German record label K7, who released Kruder and Dorfmeister's mix album, said we went to interview Bobby Womack, and we couldn't go over there, and he couldn't come to us. But anyway, he described Ray and Christian as looking like astrologers, and I found that quite hilarious that that's what he thought of us rather than musicians. So anyway, I have a big love affair of Bobby Womack. He'll always be in my heart. We used to shout Bobby on the dance floor when anyone would drop it, or just in general, we loved him that much. If you get a chance, look through his back catalogue. I'll try and put something together on Spotify once I'm finished this. I'm playing in Sheffield on this Friday night at the Haggler's Corner. If you're in Sheffield, come down. Thank you for all your support with everything to do with my music career, with Ray and Christian and Grand Central. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas, and next year's going to be a big one, yeah? Debut novel, lots of fresh music with no samples in it, and I'll be looking forward to dropping that on you. Okay, lots of love from Mark. I'm out of here. Peace.